Dante's Boxing Nation.
Deontay Nation, what's going on, guys? So I wanted to give my thoughts on this unfortunate situation, this news of Anthony Joshua deciding to now fight Povetkin because apparently the WBA has, out of nowhere, just given Povetkin or given Anthony Joshua 24 hours to sign a deal with Povetkin to fight him, or else they're threatening to strip him of the belt. Let me just say this, guys. First of all, when have you ever seen two fighters negotiating, two champions negotiating for quite some time, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the WBA, the WBC, or the IBF, they automatically jump in the middle of negotiations and say, no, you guys are not fighting, you have to fight Povetkin next. It's normally never done this way, guys. It is normally never done this way. I mean, even in the Golovkin situation, when they stripped him of his IBF belt, Golovkin was supposed to fight his mandatory a long time ago. Golovkin, he chose to downgrade and fight someone who wasn't even ranked in the rankings, who had never even fought in the division when he fought against Vanes Martirosyan. That's why in his situation, by way of contrast, it made sense that the IBF would threaten to strip Golovkin of his title. And to add on to that, the IBF, they warned Gennady Golovkin before the Vanes Martirosyan fight and after the Vanes Martirosyan fight. You see, there are so many differences when we're comparing the two. Because when it comes to Anthony Joshua's situation, he would have turned down his mandatory fight so that he can unify the belts, right? For a much bigger fight, much bigger threat, a much bigger fight overall, a much more dangerous fight. With Gennady Golovkin, he had no reason to fight a guy that was not ranked, a guy that had never fought at middleweight, a guy that was completely inactive and hadn't had a fight in 2 years and was coming off of a loss on top of all of that I just mentioned. Now, this is what the president, the WBA president, Gilberto Mendoza, had to say about the situation. He said the WBA have allowed over a month extension to negotiations with Povetkin and also ongoing discussions with Deontay Wilder. It appears Wilder's team have not returned the contract for the fight, and therefore, we are requesting a date for the Joshua versus Povetkin fight with immediate effect. My first reaction to what Gilberto just said right there is, I find it kind of interesting and odd that he allowed them to negotiate. He said, I gave them a month to negotiate, and then he says, like he indirectly blames, negotiations falling through on Deontay Wilder. Because he says, since Deontay Wilder, hasn't returned the contract or hasn't signed the contract and had it for so long, I'm just going to push for the Povetkin fight. So it sounds like he's made up his mind on who he's blaming this on. It just all sounds extremely fishy that you would have someone from a different organization kind of intervene when it comes to negotiations between Wilder and Anthony Joshua. The whole thing is, if Mendoza has already gave them permission to negotiate, and he's already gave them an additional month to negotiate, why wouldn't you, if you're that concerned about details of negotiations, why wouldn't you try to look into it more on both sides and see what's going on with the situation? Clearly if Mendoza has already gave them an extension, then an extra week or two is not going to make a difference if he's already given them a 1 month extension. But, with all this being said, clearly this looks more like this is some favor that Mendoza is doing for Anthony Joshua. Because once again, we all know Anthony Joshua, He demanded $50 million up front, and Deontay Wilder agreed to his demands. Deontay Wilder came up with the $50 million. And keep in mind, guys, Anthony Joshua said that was the only stipulation. He said, you give me $50 million, we make the fight. Straight up. He said, give me $50 million, we make the fight. But he didn't expect Wilder to come up with the $50 million. So Wilder comes up with the $50 million, and now Anthony comes up with another stipulation. Now he says the fight has to be in the UK. But before he was talking about fighting Wilder, he was willing to fight Big Baby Miller, Vladimir Klitschko in a rematch, and other fighters in Las Vegas in the United States. Anthony Joshua, he told me, and I've been playing the clip with it in his own words, he said, I want to fight in Las Vegas. That's what I want to do. This is what Anthony Joshua said. He said it like that's always been his dream, as if that's like making it to the big leagues. You know, if you're fighting in Las Vegas, because we all know Las Vegas and United States is somewhat of the mecca of boxing. You know, that's how he made it sound, at least. And let me just close with saying this. Now, we all heard the reports that Deontay Wilder, he has the contract that Eddie Hearn and Team Joshua sent to him. And he obviously hasn't signed the contract yet, right? Do you know how easy it would be if you didn't want to fight a guy? You know how easy it would be to send a contract that you know he's not going to sign? For all we know, it could be a contract saying, we're going to pay you $15 million. We want 10 to 15% of your salary for the rest of your career if we lose to you. I'm not saying that's in the contract, but I'm saying anything can be in that contract. The example I just used was exactly what the former heavyweight champion Tommy Burns, he did. He was forced into fighting the first black heavyweight champion of the world, Jack Johnson, who was fighting for Burns' title. The situation is pretty analogous to this situation when you really think about it, because in that situation, Tommy Burns, he avoided Jack Johnson forever. He avoided him for years, actually. Jack Johnson would travel to all of Tommy Burns' fights. He would try to pressure him into taking the fight. But of course, that was a different time. And the excuse that Tommy Burns was using was he would never give a black man a shot at the title. He said as long as he's champion, there'll never be a black heavyweight champion because he'll never give a black heavyweight a shot at the title. So that's the excuse he used for a couple years. But after a while, as the buzz started to grow when it came to Jack Johnson, even white people started to pressure Tommy Burns to take the fight. Eventually, he couldn't avoid it, and then he finally said, I tell you what, I'll fight him as long as I get this, and that. But one of the main stipulations was he wanted a percentage of Jack Johnson's earnings for the rest of Jack Johnson's career. That was the only way he would fight Jack Johnson. So my point once again is we don't know what's in that contract. We don't know what's in that contract. Like I said, it is very easy to send someone a contract that you know they're not going to accept, so you can tell the public, well, hey, we sent him a contract. He's just playing games now. Like Eddie Hearn is saying now, because Eddie Hearn, he spoke on what WBA did as well. And he was like, hey, man, the WBA, I guess they're just sick of him playing games, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? So at the end of the day, as far as I'm concerned, Anthony Joshua, he never wanted this fight. Anthony Joshua, the fear that he has of losing to Deontay Wilder is something I've never seen above before. Anything I've just never seen
in the sport of
this
boxing
level. And the reason why I bring up the word fear, we often hear the word fear in the sport of boxing used in many different ways. You'll hear fans sometimes say a person is scared, he's a coward, he's ducking, it's because of fear. You'll hear a boxer saying, well, no boxer fears anyone because it takes courage to get in the ring. And a lot of people, they won't get in that ring. But this is what you guys have to understand. When it comes to fear of your money being messed with, when it comes to fear of your reputation taking a hit, when it comes to the fear of you getting a blemish on your record, knowing your checks won't be the same anymore if you lose, knowing it will be somewhat of a financial demotion if you lose, that would make anyone fear that. You understand what I'm saying? That would make anyone fear that. That's why, HBO, I'm sure they still do this, but HBO, they used to give fighters contracts. And they used to basically say, look, we're going to give you this contract, 7-fight deal, but you got to keep winning. You got to keep winning. If you lose, I believe when Mayweather fought Corrales, they gave them a fight deal just to it was an incentive to get that fight made, right? They said, look, whoever wins this fight, they'll get this kind of deal. The loser will get this kind of deal. I think they said the loser, he can come back, on the HBO one more time, if he wins, whatever, right? But the winner got a 7-fight deal. But you got to keep winning, though. You have to keep winning. So when you have a contract like that, and you know how important it is to win, or else you could damn near be fired from the network, of course there's going to be fear, right? So yeah, so it's not true when you say, oh, well, if a fighter is avoiding another fighter, he can't be afraid. In fact, Deontay Wilder agrees with me, because Deontay Wilder has called Anthony Joshua a bunch of pussies. He said, I smell pussy, and et cetera, et cetera. He talked about the fear that this man has for him. So he agrees exactly with what I just said right now. The fear of losing is not the same fear of getting hit in the face. Oh, it hurts. The pain of getting hit with a punch, or, whatever the case. Those are two different things, guys. Those are two different things. So with that being said, I hope you guys understand what fear truly means in the sport of boxing. That's all I got for now.